Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, let's hope so. I'm in for a treat anyway, because it's nice to be in front of real live human beings. So, a special welcome to you for making the effort to come. And obviously, a great welcome to everybody who's watching, on the webcast. So, the topic is gratitude is sweetness. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk about it, because it's one of those things that you may not find or make the time to think about, never mind talk about it. And I've spent a little while preparing myself, and I realized what an important subject it is. So before we start, we'll just have a couple of minutes of meditation and relaxation to help us to focus on the here and now. So if you'd like to make sure you're sitting upright, legs uncrossed, so the energy can circulate properly, hands open on the thighs, and then just do some slow, deep, what we call diaphragm breathing. So breathing in through the nose, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. So not just breathing up here, but the whole of the lungs, because that means we get more energy into the body and more energy into the brain. And then hold the breath to the count of 3, and then slowly release through the mouth. So just focus your attention on your breath as it goes in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then just remember how important breathing is. If we weren't able to breathe, we would die, unless we had a machine to which we were attached. So breath is life. It gives us life. It gives us energy. It's one of the essentials that the soul needs when it's in a body. Air, oxygen. It's something that we take for granted, but without it, where would we be? So it's good to be grateful for the oxygen we breathe. And then notice how this feeling of gratitude just for breathing, how it affects our mood. It lifts our mood. It lightens our spirit. So enjoy this feeling of lightness and gratitude just for the next few moments. And now, holding on to these positive feelings and thoughts, just bring your attention back into the space where you are. And then look around you. And smile. And, just feel good. So do you feel better for doing that? Yes, there's some nods, so that's good. Yeah, so it's a simple thing. But in a way, that's a form of practicing gratitude. And that's the subject for this evening. So I'm going to actually, would you mind getting me that tin of tomatoes there, please? I forgot to bring them with me. They're just there. No, the tomatoes, that's it. Thanks. Yeah. I won't show you the make. I'm not here to advertise. But when I was thinking of gratitude and that, I thought of a tin of tomatoes. You might think, why a tin of tomatoes? Well, actually, I mean, tomatoes are quite nice, aren't they? We put them in lots of different food, and they're one of the basic ingredients. But it was the whole thing. We can go to the supermarket. There's loads of different brands, different prices, and everything else. And we usually just go in, grab a tin or two, and pay for it and go home and use it. Now, do we ever stop and think about a tin of tomatoes or anything else? Come to that. So, I think that to put gratitude in its context, I think we need to remember other aspects connected with it. So, taking things for granted. If I take this for granted, I don't think about it, I just use it, throw the tin away without a thought for any of the work that's gone into bringing this tin of tomatoes, into my home. There's a lot that goes behind a tin of tomatoes. Quite often they're imported from Italy. Then they're cooked and chopped, and then they're put in a tin. Now, again, we can take tins for granted, but actually think of all the work that's gone into producing a tin. Someone somewhere has had to mine the tin out of the earth, and then it's had to go to be purified and refined, and then it's been turned into tin cans. We take it for granted, we don't even think about it. And then the tin can, it seals the ingredients, and then they last for a long time. So that, it's quite an amazing, invention on one level. Tin cans, they've improved the quality of people's lives enormously. So we can just take it all for granted and almost see it as an entitlement, and just grab it off the shelves and not think about it anymore. And then we throw away the tin, and we may not even think of recycling it. We just put it in the general rubbish with everything else, and then it will get buried in the ground, and that will be the end of the tin can and the tomatoes we'll have used, again, without thinking about them necessarily. So, if we're indifferent to things, if we take things for granted, that isn't a good state of being, really. It's not going to lead to us feeling grateful. It's not going to lead to us appreciating all the wonderful things of nature and all the people who've actually helped to produce the tin. So, of tomatoes. So, I mean, that's, one approach. We can just take it all for granted. In other words, in a way, be indifferent. And then the other approach is to be ungrateful. Now, I presume you've come across some people who are ungrateful, always complaining, always criticizing. So somebody might look at this tin and say, well, it's a bit battered maybe, or it hasn't got one of those seals on the top so you can just pull the top off, and they could be complaining about that. That means I've got to get a tin opener out, and it becomes one long complaint from beginning to end. And then they'll be looking at the contents saying, well, maybe the quality of the tomatoes isn't that good and there should be more in the tin. And it will go on, and it will create, a feeling of unease and a feeling of distaste, not only in that person, but everybody around them. So is it nice to be around someone who's ungrateful? No. Someone who takes everything for granted? No. So, I mean, a lot of the people here are sisters, and we know women do most of the housework. We know women do most of the cooking, and, cooking maybe 3 meals a day. In Indian families, they seem to do lots of extra meals compared maybe with the Western family, where we might have a bit of cereal and toast in the morning. But, how do you feel if everyone just grabs it, rushes it down, and rushes out the door without saying a thank you or without saying any comments like it was nice? How do you feel? Do you feel happy about that, or do you sometimes wish people would say thank you? All right. I mean, if when people do say thank you, how do you feel? You feel happy, you feel valued, you feel appreciated, you feel that, it's worthwhile doing because you're making a contribution which is being recognized. If the contribution is not recognized, if it's taken for granted, then you could end up feeling resentful, you could end up feeling a bit bitter. You could feel that nobody is really bothered about you. You're just almost like a machine in the background, cooking and cleaning and doing all sorts of things while everybody just gets on with their own life and more or less ignores you. So it's not a good state to live in, is it? And it will spoil the relationship. And then there can be arguments and all sorts of things. Likewise for men, quite often in the past, maybe not so much now, I don't know, when men have been the main breadwinners and they've been working, 10 or 12 hours a day to bring in the money for the food and everything else, sometimes they can feel taken for granted, maybe, and other people might sort of think, oh, he does nothing in the house, he leaves it all to me. And, the man is maybe exhausted from working hard all day, and his contribution can be taken for granted. And the kids don't even think about, what their mum has done or their dad is doing or has done, and live in this little bubble where they think everything is going to be done for them and they don't have to worry about anything. So, to be able to sort of go beyond that and actually value and appreciate people is a very important part of gratitude. And gratitude, as a definition here. All right, thank you, yes. There you go, thank you. See, I appreciate you pointing out my glasses are on the floor rather than on my head as they are now. So, yeah, so even a little thing like that, you see, you could have just let me carry on. So there you go. So there was some awareness there was some kindness there, there was a desire to help there. There's lots of things, behind an act of kindness. And then I'm grateful to you because I haven't broken my glasses now, and I'm going to be able to read this definition, which I got off the internet earlier on today. So, and I like this definition actually. Gratitude is the act of feeling and communicating appreciation for the people, circumstances, and material possessions in our lives. It allows us to cherish our present in ways that make us feel in abundance rather than deprived. So it's quite a nice definition, isn't it, I think? So it's a feeling. Definitely have to feel it, I think. And then not just feel it, because people won't know whether you are actually appreciating it. You have to express it. So you say something, and it's a way of looking at everything in your life. So the people in your life, the circumstances in your life, the situation in your life. And so they talk about, developing an attitude of gratitude. So an attitude is actually like a default position. It's something which you apply at all times without even thinking about it. It becomes an automatic way of seeing things and connecting. And gratitude uplifts us, it empowers us, it gives being brought up to focus on the negative rather than the positive. We've been taught to think in terms of scarcity rather than abundance. We've been taught to criticize, analyze, complain, blame. And those forms of thinking, actually make us feel sad. They make us feel bad because we'll end up maybe getting depressed. They will affect our health and our well-being because it's a very negative energy. It's a fear-based negative energy when we get into this scarcity and complaining way of thinking about things. So it'll drain our energy, spoil our relationships, and people won't want to know us because, he or she, they're always complaining, always moaning. You can never get things right for them. They'll always find something wrong. They never say thank you, and they just grab it and use it, and then they complain and want more. And so obviously it doesn't help them, it doesn't help you, and it's not really the way to be. And so the opposite of that will have a big impact. And I have come across people, I can remember one person in particular, I was doing some coaching with him, and he was referred to me because he was always getting angry, very angry. And part of the anger ended up with complaining. Nothing was ever right, nothing was ever good enough, etc. And then I asked him a bit about his background, and that was quite interesting. He'd had quite a difficult childhood, and then a number of the people in his life, it was quite amazing really, had died in dramatic circumstances on different occasions. One had been killed in an accident, one had been killed in an explosion, and I forget what happened to somebody else. But he'd got into a state of mind, where life was dangerous, fearful, and he couldn't count on anything or anyone. Even though he was married, and he did have children, and he did have a nice house, and a car, and all the things on the outside, inside, he was feeling, ungrateful, wretched, and a victim. Everything had been tried with him, And I did try different techniques as well, and most of them actually didn't seem to work. Don't we? And yes, all right then. So that's one. And what about your job? You're lucky to have a job, aren't you? You could be unemployed. Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. So that was the second thing. And then I said, what about your house? What do you like about your house? He said, well, actually, we live by the sea, and I really like the sea. Good. Well, that's three things then. You're grateful for living by the sea, you've got a job, and you're able to walk. And he said, oh, all right. So I said, go away, and I want you to write a list, come back next week with a list of 50 things that you're grateful for. And he thought I was mad, but he went home, and then he started thinking about things. And slowly, gradually, he started thinking, well, I've got a wife and she's kind to me. My daughter's doing well at school. We've nearly paid off the mortgage on the house. The list went on and on. And he came back the next week with his 50 things. And when he came into the office, he came in with a spring in his step, with a smile on his face, and he had this new energy, instead of coming in miserable and, dragging his feet, he just was so happy. I said, oh, what's happened to you? And he said, well, I completed that list, and I feel so good. And basically, it has shifted his whole mindset from poor me and isn't life terrible to, well, actually, I'm very lucky, I'm very fortunate, in so many different ways. So this is the power of gratitude, if we can train ourselves to do it. So before I carry on, I'd like you to think of 3 things that you're grateful for. All right, so we just have a minute where you just think about what you're grateful for. And then everybody online, if you could do the same, please. And then of your 3 things, think of one in particular that you're grateful for. And then those of you who are on Zoom, if you could, put in the chat box there something that you're grateful for. Will you be able to tell me, or will I see it or not? If anyone puts anything in the chat box about that,
yeah, I can tell you.
You can tell me. All right, that'd be good. Thank you. And then maybe everyone who's here, if you'd like to say one thing you're grateful for, you can say it out loud, or I can repeat it so everyone can hear. Can we start off with you? One thing you're grateful for?
The family that cares for me.
Family that cares for you. Great. Grateful for being able to read and write. Yes, so it's a very important skill to have, isn't it? Oh, that's nice. An opportunity to attend things like this. which are free of charge, but hopefully quite helpful. Thank you, yes? Grateful for having a good doctor.
Having a roof over my head.
Having a roof over my head, yes. Especially when you think what's going on in parts of the world at the moment. To have a roof over your head is a wonderful benefit, isn't it?
Similar. So to live in Nandi, which is very safe, and in comparison to other things.
Yeah, so living in a safe place. Yeah, very important.
To enjoy coming here and enjoy the lectures every week.
Oh, well, that's good. Enjoying the lectures here every week
Learning new things.
and learning new things. Great.
I'm grateful that I feel at peace at the moment and I'm not stressed at all.
Well, that's nice. Grateful for feeling peaceful and not stressed at all. And then, are there any online that might? Not yet. Okay. All right. Well, if there are any, you can let me know. Thank you. Okay. So there's a nice variety there, isn't there? And when we hear about other people's examples, we can add them to our list. You know, so one of my favourites is that the poo goes down the loo, you know, when you flush the toilet. Having a sewage system that works is wonderful. You know, you can take that for granted, but there are parts of the world where there isn't a sewage system, and it's a real hygiene hazard, and it's also a physical hazard for women in particular. You know, if you have to go in the fields to the toilet or whatever. So we're amazingly fortunate. So, yeah, so it can lead really to a whole change in mindset. Because they say where the attention goes, the energy flows. So where is my attention going? Is it going on the positive? Is it going on things that I'm grateful for? Or is it going the other way? Am I coming from a space of scarcity and fear? Or am I coming from a space of love and optimism? And we can then apply that, you see, to everything in our life. If we've got that positive, grateful attitude, you know, like today, you know, I needed to go to the hospital for a blood test. And I was grateful for everything, you know, the whole way there. Grateful that I could walk, actually, because I hurt my knee the other day and it was quite painful. I didn't know whether I'd be able to walk properly, but I was able to walk to the station. I was grateful for that. The train came within 2 minutes. I was grateful for that. When I got to the hospital, there's such a nice atmosphere there, lots of people doing good. And I only had to wait a couple of minutes and I was called in. And when you think of it, all these people are there supporting us and helping us. And, you know, the nurse was kind, took the blood, and, you know, off I went. And then I was able to get myself a drink afterwards, you know, turn it into a little trip out. In fact, I was very grateful, you know, during COVID in particular, that when I had to go to the hospital, it became a day out. And I can remember the doctor saying, "Do you want a telephone appointment, or would you like to come in and see me?" I said, "Yes, please, I'd like to come and see you," because we weren't going out too much during the COVID times. It's one of the breaks, you know, in it. We were still being cautious. And, you know, I came away from it not thinking about, are the tests going to be okay? What's going to happen when I get the results next week? You don't go into fear, you don't go into worry. You just go into gratitude, and I'm sure everything's going to be okay. It becomes a whole positive mindset that you apply to everything. And then, of course, it's not just a case of thinking it, but it's also then a case of expressing the gratitude, and this is part of it. So think of some way in which you express gratitude to people. So we'll go around, and you can maybe come up with different ways in which you express gratitude. So how do you express it? One example. by saying thank you. That makes a big difference, saying thank you. Straight away, 2 words. But it changes the relationship, doesn't it? You know, people are grateful for receiving a thank you. That makes them feel good, and then they'll say, oh, don't mention it, or whatever, I'm pleased to have helped you. Another way of saying thank you? Bless you. You can give people a blessing. That's a very nice thing to do. And in the BKs, the Brahmakumaris, I mean, we have a lovely way of expressing gratitude. We will give people a blessing card, maybe, or we give them a toli, which is a sweet made with love. And the person receiving that, automatically, they feel good. Yeah, another way of expressing gratitude? Writing a little note. Yeah, very good. You're taking time out to stop and to show that you care by writing a little note. And the little note will say something nice in it, won't it? What do you write in your notes?
Well, especially if I kind of annoy my housemate, because I'd have to stay up late night, and he doesn't like noises, so I'll just leave a note saying sorry first, and then, appreciating the fact that he tolerates me.
Well, that's nice. For those of you who might not have heard that, then Sister saying she leaves a note for her flatmate because she stays up quite late. And you didn't look a noisy sort. What are you doing at night? Are you dancing around or something or other? Or?
No, I just like the night. I'm a night person.
You're a night person. Do you have the radio or the TV turned up loud or something?
Depends what I'm doing. I like to read or do certain things. Even walking at night kind of gives me a lot of peace.
Okay. So you leave him a note saying, apologising and saying thank you for tolerating you. So that will help him to put up with you, won't it?
Yeah,
Or accept you.
It's like regular, because sometimes it's every day, and the floorboard I think is very soft, so he can hear things and find it difficult to sleep, or I don't know.
Yes. All right. So you're showing some consideration for his feelings. So even in the act of saying thank you, there's a lot behind it if you start looking at it, isn't there? It's not just an automatic thing. You're valuing and appreciating the way that he is, that he does accept you. He's not banging on your door, shouting at you, telling you to go to sleep or stop walking around. He's accepting the way you are. You're a night person. And then you're valuing and appreciating the freedom that he's giving you to do that.
And I think act of writing as well, it's taking time out rather than just typing a message.
Yes, writing the message, taking time out. Yeah, you've got to get the pen, you've got to get the paper. Then do you put it in an envelope as well, or just fold it and stick it under his door, or what? Fold it, put it on. Yeah, but even that, you see, taking more effort rather than a quick text message. Yes. And anything else? Can you think of anything else to add?
Yesterday I was very down, and suddenly my friend rang me and said, Marie, I'm going to come and pick you up in 15 minutes, and I'm taking you out for a swim at David Lloyd's. I was so happy after I had my swim. When we finished, she says, I'm taking you out for a meal. She treated me to a meal. So today, I was looking for a little gift for her.
Oh, how nice.
Spent the day looking for a little gift.
There we go. So the sister is saying she was a bit down, and her friend, took her out for a swim, and you felt really good, and then she took you for a meal, and you felt great, and now in return you've spent today looking for a gift for her. Yeah. Did you find one?
I think I did, but I want to ask her first. She says she's going on holiday in 2-3 weeks' time, so I saw a very nice bathing costume. I think I will get that, but I want her to approve it first.
Okay.
She's happy with it.
All right. There you go. You see, there's consideration behind the gift. You're not just giving her any old thing. You want to give her something which will be useful, that she'll like. Yeah, so the whole thing has improved your relationship, hasn't it? And it's taken you out of yourself as well, because when we're feeling down, we're quite self-absorbed. And so gratitude takes us out of ourselves. It stops us just thinking about poor me, and it helps me to start thinking about other people and what they're doing and what they're giving and things like that. So, oh, very good. See, there's such a variety, isn't there? You know, when you stop to think about it. So, any other examples of gratitude? The thank you, yes. Okay. Anything to add?
Just like if someone's cooking meals, like doing the same thing, like just like the other example that you said.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, someone gives you a meal and then you invite them round for a meal as a show of appreciation. And then the thing which I often do is, if someone invites me around for a meal, I like to do the washing up. You know, and I always take a little present as well, maybe a bunch of flowers or something, because, you know, it's really nice if somebody does invite you for a meal. And if somebody ever makes me a cup of tea, I'm grateful to them for eternity, because I live by myself and have to make all my cups of tea myself. So if anybody makes me a cup of tea, I really appreciate that very, very much, because again, it's a sign of thoughtfulness, isn't it? It's a sign that somebody is considering you, a sign that they're wanting to support you or help you. Only a little thing, small token, but, you know, they say actions speak louder than words. And, yeah, so definitely putting that appreciation and that gratitude into action, you know, makes a big difference. Anything else to add? No?
You just mentioned that thing, I suppose. Thank you comes words, and then when you put it into action, and you reciprocate that as well to somebody, you then open a channel of energy exchange. The time to the young lady down there, how about negative emotions for them, the friend went and did a gesture of instilling positive energy, and now she's now filled with so much of positive energy and trying to respond back in positive. So you can see that an action brings in away the negative energy, so positive energy. And
Yes.
so think nice about it, so more appreciative. And they would carry on doing the same gesture of the others. And therefore a chain reaction starts of how we educate as well. But then again, so at times
You should be up here, shouldn't you, now, saying all this? We ought to have another microphone so people can hear you. But no, that's very good. So what you're saying, yes, there's an exchange of energy, and the energy goes from negative to positive. And then, excuse me. I'm grateful for the water. You know. And in fact, that reminds me, one of the senior teachers, Sudesh Didi, I don't know if any of you have come across her, but she's based in Global House there now. Whenever she has a drink of water, when she picks the glass up, she gives what's called drishti. So she gives it loving energy as thank you for the water. Because then that water is energized, because water does actually absorb energy. So even if you say, you know, love to the water, it picks up on the energy of love. So if you're giving it love, you end up drinking love, the energy of vibration of love. So you're right, there is an exchange, and positive energy is more powerful than negative energy. And it will uplift us. So, you know, whatever our circumstances might be, and, you know, especially at the moment with the fuel price rises and food increases and job insecurity, you know, we've still got that choice to be grateful. And that reminds me, actually, I was in the hairdresser's not so long ago, and the young man was having his hair cut. I think he was about 21, and he'd had one job, and then it sounded like quite a rough, tough job, and he'd ended up breaking his leg, and he was on a 0 hours contract, so that was the end of the job, and he was just getting, income support or sickness benefit for a while, and he hadn't been able to walk for 4 months. And then there he was sitting in the chair telling the barber this, and then he said, I had 3 interviews yesterday for warehouse jobs, and I've been offered one, and I'm so excited. And then he said, life is a gift. Someone else could think, in his circumstances, he's broken his leg, he's been on sickness benefit for ages, he's probably going into another 0 hours contract in a warehouse, and there he is thinking life is a gift. And actually, it made me stop and think, because sometimes I don't remember that life is a gift, and really it's something to be grateful for in all its ways, even if there are challenges. So again, you see, even if you have a challenge of a low-paid job, etc., you can still practice gratitude, because you can turn it. I mean, it depends on your circumstances, but you can almost turn it into well, I like to use that word, spiritual gymnasium. The challenges come to make us strong, and you can almost turn it into a game. I'm going to be really clever about the way I use my money. I'm not going to take money for granted, as I have done. I'm going to be very careful, see how much money I can save. There's probably, not for a lot of people, obviously, I'm not talking about the very poor, but there's lots of people who are on the edge of that, who could maybe save some money with a different attitude or a different approach. Like, it's nice to go out for coffee. Well, coffee is now, it's what, £3.25, something like that. And now, I quite like having a coffee. I don't have one every day, but, I'm stopping and thinking twice now about some weeks I've had 3 or 4 or 5. Well, that's £15, and if you multiply that by 4, that's £60 a month, which obviously is a lot of money. So it's a case of, being grateful for being able to have a coffee, but making sure it's not at the expense of other things. You still, one thing, oh, poor me, I used to have 5 coffees a week, and now I can only have 1. Be grateful for the 1. Does that make sense? So that attitude, you can apply it to everything. So even when you're ill, you can apply it, because you can get medication. Well, it's great. You can have an operation, maybe. There's so many different things behind everything that's happening in our lives. So there's gratitude for all of these different things if we apply it. So the important thing is to be aware of it, aware of that attitude, to develop it, and that means, practicing it and then expressing it. And you can apply it in the here and now, but you can also apply it, to your whole life. So quite an interesting exercise to do, which you could do sometime. I've done it in the past. Look back over your whole life and see how much you've been helped from birth all the way through. Like you mentioned, being able to read and write, Well, there's a lot behind that, isn't there, if you stop to think about it? There are teachers, parents, or carers who helped, but all those people had an education themselves. They were trained. People paid taxes in order to train the teachers. Schools were provided. When you start looking at it, it's amazing how many people in so many different ways have contributed to the life which we're living, or the life which we've lived up until now. And you can spread it out, to your parents and other family members, the support they've received, extend it out to nature. Where would we be without nature? Where would we be without the sun shining, without the rain falling, without the earth being fertile enough to produce, grains and fruits and different things like that? We're being supported by so many different systems, by so many different people. Even the way, the earth goes around the sun and, everything. Not to mention, technology and social media, and we're living in an amazing world. The world on one level has never been so abundant and so amazing. On one level, we can see it's at a cost because we've gone too far and we've exploited things too much. And that's partly because we've taken things for granted. We haven't valued them. We haven't appreciated them. We haven't really gone into gratitude. We've taken it all for granted. So that attitude of gratitude actually can change everything. The way we think, the way we feel, the way we see, the way we treat people, the way we treat nature, the way we treat animals, birds, and everything else. On one level, it's an amazing miracle. And then again, you can extend that and go beyond. And in the past, people have expressed gratitude to who? Who have people expressed gratitude to? Somebody in the past that... Yes, our Maker, yes, or God. And that's not so fashionable these days, and for some people, God doesn't exist, so therefore, people don't do it. Some people don't do it, but other people of faith do. People, Hindus will offer prasad, won't they, to God as a thank you. People will pray to God, thank you for this, thank you for that. And there is that bigger picture. There is that divine help. There is that divine support. There is that, divine love, which, a lot of us actually have either rejected or dismissed, to our own detriment and to the detriment of the world. And, on that one, I have to admit, I've been, well, in my case, I was brought up a Catholic, but a lot of things happened in the name of God, which actually made me feel very angry towards God, because the God I knew was a punishing God, with nuns who used to strap us with a leather strap, and priests who used to put the fear of God in us and tell us we'd go to hell if we don't go to church on Sundays, etc. So the God that I was brought up with was a wrathful, vengeful God who would send you to hell forever. And this is one of the reasons why I stopped being a Christian. At that time, maybe the message has changed now, I hope so. But, even I wouldn't send anybody to hell forever. I got quite upset at the idea that God could do that. So I actually had a lot of anger towards God, and I would say even hate. And even after I came to the Brahma Kumaris, that didn't change for quite a long time. I valued and appreciated the teachings, the philosophy, the approach, everything. And then we're meant to have what's called a loving intellect. And that's an intellect that's full of divine love, based on that connection with God. And I didn't feel that. I appreciated things, appreciated what God may have created and things like that. I'm just looking at time, actually. I'll stop in a minute. And then I asked one of the senior teachers, what should I do? how can you learn? How can I learn to love God? And do you know what she said? You've got a clue in the topic we're talking about. She said, practice gratitude. And yes, I started doing that. Rather than focusing on all the negative things, all the fear-based things, started going the other way. And our understanding of God, is that it's the soul, that supreme being, cannot do anything negative, cannot do anything harmful, does not condemn, punish, anything like that at all. God is just pure love and loves us as we are, etc. And once you can, or once I could, appreciate that and accept that, and it's demonstrated in all sorts of ways. It's not an academic thing. It's something which actually works in your daily life. So you experience it in different ways, and then, you start to feel grateful. So, because you've been given something. Because gratitude, again, is connected with giving and receiving, isn't it? So when you're given something, you're grateful for it, or you can be. As we said, not everybody is. But when, I stopped to think about all the things that I have been, given, like I stopped work, full-time work at the age of 50, because I wanted to help God, if you like, and I took up stress management training, which was a risk. But I don't have much money, but I've never gone without. I've never gone hungry. There was a stage when I didn't have any money in the bank one Christmas, and then I thought, well, I'll just get an overdraft like I usually do, and I was refused for the first time in my life. And then I thought, oh dear, what do I do now? Because I was doing stress management training, but there are months when you don't get any, say like around Christmas and in the summer holidays. Nobody wants a trainer during those times. But if you have faith and that, things happen. And then I did get somebody, asked me to edit a book and paid me for doing that. And then someone else booked 4 training sessions with me in advance, even though those sessions were based throughout the year. And, I survived and thrived, and everything's always worked out well. And then if I think of the teachings, which we hear every day, they're amazing teachings, and they clear your mind, and they open your heart, and they give you knowledge which helps you to deal with everything in a very clear and positive way. So I wouldn't have been able to talk about gratitude, a few years ago. But I can now because I've experienced it and I understand it, and it's helped me. And I'm sure it will help you. So I'm aware we finish in 5 minutes, don't we? So,
Meditation.
yes, meditation, yeah.
Anybody has any questions?
Yes, I was going to ask. Anyone got any questions?
I remember seeing you when you did the coaching from within.
When I did the what, sorry?
I remember seeing you when you did the coaching from within.
All right.
Sir John Whitmore.
All right.
A long time ago.
Yes, that's right.
My son to it.
Okay, yes.
Do you remember?
I do remember, yes, we had lots of
Must-
people there.
Must be some years ago.
Yes, the Spirit of Coaching event, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, with
Yeah.
John Whitmore.
And
Yeah.
I remember you talking to us here, and there was one person who couldn't settle at all. And all of us were getting very angry with her, but you just picked up a chair and put the chair next to you and said, would you like to sit down next to me?
Oh, I thought you were going to say through the chair, I said.
She sat down and settled, and we all thought, oh my God, look at us, we're getting frustrated, angry, and really telling her, put yourself down. But you just picked the chair up, put it next to you, and said, come and sit down.
All
You
right.
don't remember it?
I do a little bit, yes. Yeah, so any questions from anybody? Oh, yes, good.
It's not a question, because I came in halfway through. It's just about gratitude. How I feel is that I had gratitude before, but I think my personal view over the pandemic, I feel that I've become more, I've got more gratitude towards things and people. And it was funny you were saying about the savings. Today I actually have 2 piggy banks. I have one which is for chocolate, and I'm putting 5p pieces in. And I've got another one which is for a holiday. So that's my kind of gratitude, that I'm looking forward to buying my chocolate and my holiday. But I do feel that I'm more grateful for the people
Yes.
and things around me, and the people over the pandemic that showed consideration. Because that's where I think me personally, I lost people, as in lost people, but also lost friendships, because people weren't there for each other.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, again, I think it's the attitude which really does help there. So, the COVID experience was for lots of people devastating, but on the other hand, it did lead to people valuing nature more, for example, valuing silence more, peace more, valuing the fact there weren't aeroplanes constantly going over our heads. It was almost like, going back in time to the 50s, or in my case, or maybe the 80s in your time, but when everything was much quieter, much more peaceful. And then appreciating company when you could have it, because for so long we didn't have it. I didn't see my daughter and grandchildren for 2 years because they lived in Spain. And even though you might see them on FaceTime or whatever, it's not the same thing as seeing them physically. But even then, to be grateful for having a phone and being able to have a conversation with people. So again, looking always for the benefits. So I think it made us more, in my case, perhaps more independent and less dependent on other people. So if you look for it, there will be something to be grateful for, as well as all the other things. But the other things will drag you down, whereas the gratitude will lift you up. And this is what we need at this time. We need lifting. There's so many forces pushing us down and suppressing us. We don't want to join those forces. We want to overcome those forces. Yes?
Hello, Om Shanti. I just wanted to ask you a question about, in Ukraine, all the war is going on. How would those bunch of group of people, how would they feel the gratitude about what they are suffering?
Yeah, very good question. I think it's going to depend on the individual, obviously, but there are good things coming out of it in some ways. There's the good that people are showing, wanting to take in a refugee, 200,000 people in the UK have offered to take in a family, which is amazing. So if those people from Ukraine were able to connect with them and live with them, there'd be a lot of gratitude there. Many of the refugees have gone to Poland and other countries, so they're grateful to be out of that situation. There's that, and people will be valuing whatever they have left in their life. You know, like if there's some running water you can drink, you know, your gratitude will go to that. If you've got something to eat, even if it's just a biscuit, you know, you can feel grateful for that. And then there's the spirit of unity and harmony and other things, you know, which can help you to overcome the fear and the devastation and the loss. So actually, if you think of people who went through the Second World War, a lot of them refer to it as a good time, you know, amazingly, despite all the death and destruction, because it brought people together. And they remember the bonding and the special friends they made. And then afterwards, as an expression of gratitude, people created the welfare state. They recognized everybody was important and everybody deserved to have a decent house, a decent education, and a decent job, and you know, a decent home. All those things came out of that as an expression of gratitude. And we've now ended up in a situation where all that is being taken away because we've taken it for granted, and you know, we've gone down a different route. You know, we're focusing on me and on scarcity. We can't afford it, you know, which is a nonsense. We're one of the richest countries in the world. We've got many rich people here who are paying hardly any tax. You know, gratitude actually is very powerful. If we don't use it and express it, then, you know, we're going to end up going down the route of indifference and taking everything for granted. And if you take things for granted, then you lose it. And this is what's been happening. But I think now people are going to start valuing and appreciating things again. And we'll come together again. We've gone from we to me. It's all about me. And I think we're on the way back to balance. And people want everybody to have a decent income. We don't want to see people on the streets desperate. We don't want people having to choose between heating and eating. You know, we don't want food banks providing food for people who are working full-time but aren't getting hardly any wages. I mean, it's all connected, really, and it's all to do with spiritual values, or lack of them. Anyway, I better not say anymore. I might get into trouble.
Just to add one thing to that, today there was a solidarity delegation for Ukraine. All the world faiths have gone to Ukraine, and Sister Maureen is representing Brahma Kumaris, and she is right now in Ukraine. She just flew couple of days ago, and today she was sharing the event that everybody was there, and she just saw all the refugee camps, and she visited everywhere, and she said that what she really felt was courage and love and care that was there in the people of Ukraine. So it's, as John said, it's absolutely dependent on how I individually have the attitude to live my way in life. So, yeah, thank you. It was beautiful to listen to all the faith leaders this afternoon, and especially Sister Maureen. Can we finish with a bit of meditation?
Yes, of course. Okay. Okay, so just sit back then and relax. Do the slow, deep, gentle breathing. And then turn your attention within. And just connect with your inner self, the spirit, the soul, the eternal part of you. The part that's full of peace and love and gratitude. Gratitude for being on this earth at this time. gratitude for all the people who support you in different ways without you even realizing it. The people who grow the food, the people who process it, the people who serve you when you buy it, nature. So many things to be grateful for. So many things to express thanks for. Thanks for being aware of who you are. For realizing there's more to life than meets the eye. Thanks for understanding that there is a supreme being or a God or a divine one behind the scenes who is supporting us spiritually and helping us to overcome whatever challenges we might be facing in our life. So as an expression of our gratitude, we will send out thanks, vibrations of good wishes, vibrations of love to everyone who has supported us, who is supporting us, and will support us in the future. Thanks to nature. And the more we express our gratitude, the better things will become, and the happier we will feel and be. So holding on to these powerful positive feelings of gratitude and love, just bring your attention back into the room. And look around you and smile.
Lots of gratitude and thank you to you, John, for the wonderful session that you had today. And a big thank you to all of you who have made it in person today. I think in the afternoon we were just chatting, where are the old friends? And it's good to see all of you back again. So a warm thank you. And also next week, same time, same place, with a beautiful topic. It says, uncage yourself from criticism. So we know what criticism does to us emotionally, mentally, and how can we break through that? How can we uncage ourselves from the habit of taking criticism and giving criticism, both ways. So we have a wonderful speaker, Sister Charu Patel, coming, who herself practices that. I know her in person and she's brilliant. So do join us next week. And a big thank you to all our online viewers who are there with us via Facebook, YouTube, and webcasts. So thank you, all of you as well. And have a great evening. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, everybody.